So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure and honor to invite you today to this side event on coping with environmental challenges, climate and biodiversity action in UNESCO sites. This high-level political forum is an opportunity for us to dialogue with one another and to share with each other the actions, activities undertaken by partners and member states on how they are coping with environmental challenges, climate and biodiversity action in UNESCO sites. So this forum and platform today brings together eminent personalities, excellencies, ministers, who are going to share with us their actions and activities in their regions, in their countries, and how they're coping with environmental challenges, climate and biodiversity action. I am delighted to open this event here today, and I would like to give you a very short overview from the UNESCO Director General, Madam Audrey Azoulay. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, although the COVID pandemic has shown since more than ever that when we are faced with unexpected challenges, it can only be solved by working together. And this pandemic has really changed the daily life of all of us, and we're having to cope with this new normal. But 2020 still proved to be one of the 3 warmest years on record, with increasing levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, driving more extreme weather, ice melt, sea level rise, ocean acidification. As there is no vaccine against climate change, the future can be even more devastating. Therefore, concerted climate action should not be underestimated amid the sharp focus on economic and industrial downturns. Considering these challenges, therefore, the current situation highlights that our world is strongly interconnected and interlinked, and that transformation is paramount to reach a sustainable path. More than ever, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we understand that halting biodiversity erosion and climate adaptation and mitigation are critical to support human life. This year is a crucial year for long-term political objectives. Climate change and biodiversity are at the top of the global policy agenda. The UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, were just launched, and UNESCO is strongly involved and actively engaged in all of these different initiatives that were launched by the United Nations. At the end of this year, the 196 parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity will also discuss the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and decide on new targets. Furthermore, during the UN Climate Conference, the 196 parties will also commit to a more ambitious nationally determined contributions to be in line with the objectives of the Paris Agreement to limit global warming well below 2 degrees, preferably 1.5, compared to pre-industrial levels. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for UNESCO too, 2021 is a special year. This year, UNESCO celebrates its 75th birthday. The Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, hosted by UNESCO, commonly known as IOC, the only body of its kind in the United Nations, celebrates 60th anniversary, and the Man and the Biosphere program celebrates 50 years this year. The Intergovernmental Hydrological Program celebrates more than 50 years of its existence. Dear colleagues, what we need now are solutions to address the global challenges we are all facing, and UNESCO is at the forefront to promote sustainable solutions, particularly through its network of sites, designated sites, World Heritage Sites, natural heritage sites, biosphere reserves, and global geoparks. And also, UNESCO is committed to address these global challenges through its international and intergovernmental scientific programs. UNESCO has its unique global network of more than 2,000 designated sites, 1,121 World Heritage Sites, 714 biosphere reserves in 129 countries, and 169 global geoparks distributed all over the world actually cover 6% of the Earth's landmass. These sites are important models for building resilience to climate change and are well aligned with the recommendation of the ipbes and IPCC report. Through its UNESCO designated sites, UNESCO is accelerating local sustainable solutions through participatory governance and the combination of the natural sciences, the social sciences, humanities, education, culture, and communication, but also by providing policy guidance to its member states on the impacts of climate change and the best adaptation mitigation measures possible, suitable to local circumstances. As we are celebrating the 50th year of the Man in the Biosphere program, this program has in fact been a very pioneering and visionary program that was established in 1971 in order to enhance relationship between people and the environments in a scientific framework. Each biosphere reserve is a unique site. Covering today 740 and 129 countries, they showcase solutions for transformation in line with the Sustainable Development Goals and represent an enormous and concrete effort carried out by the member states and their citizens in a multi-stakeholder approach. In 2021, as we celebrate the 50th year of the anniversary, above all, the commitment of millions of women and men and children who make up the body, the soul, and the spirit of the Biosphere Reserves. Since its creation in 1971, the program has paved a way for a vision that in a renewed relationship between humans and the environment is an opportunity to reconcile restoration, preservation, conservation, development, to transmit the full potential of life to future generations. And 50 years on, these 714 biosphere reserves, and including 21 transboundary sites, build peace between nations, demonstrating the commitment of our member states to open up different spaces of harmony between human beings and the environment. So more than 5% of the terrestrial surface is actually covered by the biosphere reserves themselves, in which today more than 260 million people call biosphere reserves their home. These men and women who have decided to commit themselves to their territory in a respectful way in order to seek solutions to global challenges. But there's also the scientific community, which through its research collects and analyzes data so we can better understand our planet, our ecosystem services, the diversity and interactions with human beings. They're also the decision makers who, through policies taken at national and local level, are promoting actions to direct the territories towards sustainability. Through the interface of education, the natural sciences, the social sciences, culture, communication, and information, UNESCO is addressing needs to mitigate and adapt to climate change. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, culture in all its forms can serve as a key source for climate change adaptation and mitigation. UNESCO is the only UN body which is committed to promoting cultural diversity and respect for and among people. Culture as a mandate of UNESCO is extremely important today, and UNESCO is actively mobilized to address the impact of climate change on culture and promote its role for climate action. Culture is an indispensable tool for climate mitigation, as cultural heritage, natural heritage, and creativity can all contribute to addressing the root causes of climate change. Natural heritage sites are key to protecting biodiversity and mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. Ensuring the conservation of these sites, particularly through traditional community-based management practices, must be a vital part of climate change mitigation strategies. And culture is also crucial for inspiring behavioral change and innovative climate solutions while integrating a concern for the environment into cultural policies. This can reduce the carbon footprint for the creative economies that we all wish for. The Intergovernmental Hydrological Program of UNESCO, which is the only intergovernmental hydrological program, envisions a water-secure world where people and institutions have adequate capacity and scientifically based knowledge for informed decisions on water management and governance to attain sustainable development and to build resilient societies tested and validated within the UNESCO designated sites. Now, these sites really focus on preserving the natural heritage, biodiversity restoration, conservation, and sustainable development through interdisciplinary and participatory approaches. There are also means to provide a training for youth empowerment because intergenerational equity, intergenerational solidarity is critical and at the heart of our work as we advocate for future and building a formidable community of values whose goal is harmonious life on earth with respect for living things. So conserving the harmony of ecosystems and resilience to climate change are really at the heart of UNESCO's designated sites. UNESCO brings together in this holistic manner the education, the science, culture, and communication to build on a new relationship with nature, an alliance for peace with nature and for nature. I therefore welcome you all to the side event. We have a rich program for the next 90 minutes, and I wish you fruitful insights and discussions. And thank you very much for joining us in this opening session. For coping strategies, coping with climate and environmental challenges through action, not only in our sites, but also hearing from our distinguished speakers who will be sharing with us the initiatives on the ground. Thank you very much. We will now proceed, if I may. Chair, thank you. On the introduction, which is part 1, addressing climate change and biodiversity from the scientific perspective. Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, it really gives me great pleasure today to introduce to you 2 distinguished speakers, Professor Hans Otto Portner and Dr. David Obura. Professor Hans Otto Portner, who probably is no stranger to all of you, he's professor and head of the Department of Integrative Ecophysiology in Germany. He was the co-chair of the Scientific Steering Committee of the ipbesipcc co-sponsored workshop, and he is currently the co-chair of the Working Group 2 for the 6th assessment cycle of IPCC. He was co-chair of the Scientific Steering Committee, and his research interests include the effects of climate warming, ocean acidification on marine animals and ecosystems. Thank you, Professor Hans Otto, for being with us here today. I would also like to introduce Dr. David Obura, also no stranger to our world. David Obura is a founding director of and works at Cordio, East Africa in Mombasa in Kenya. And Cordio is a knowledge organization supporting sustainability of the coral reef and the marine systems in the Western Indian Ocean. David Obura's primary research is on coral reef resilience, in particular to climate change. He's also a biogeography, especially the biogeography of the Indian Ocean. He was an invited expert for IPBES and IPCC. I will now give the floor to Professor Hans Otto Portner to start to talk about the co-benefits of biodiversity protection and climate action, insights from the IPBES IPCC workshop, first intervention presentation by both of you. And I thank you very much for highlighting the role and interlinkages. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to join you and talk to you about our workshop report that we have produced, the first ever collaboration between IPBES and IPCC in history, and I hope there will be more to come. So my name is Hans Pörtner. I'm co-chair of IPCC Working Group 2 and have been co-chair of this co-sponsored workshop and its report. And together with David Obura, it's my pleasure to provide a short overview of our key findings. Can I have the next slide, please? The report deals with 3 intertwined systems: the changing climate system, the changing biosphere, where we currently see accelerating loss of biodiversity, and the human society, which is going through its own inherent crises, such as the current pandemics and associated challenges. Climate change and biodiversity loss are threatening human well-being as well as society. They are closely interconnected, and they share common drivers through human activities. They are reinforcing each other and are intertwined through mechanistic links and feedbacks. And I will start with a brief look into those. Nature already absorbs more than 50% of anthropogenic CO2 emissions through carbon storage in biomass and